Greetings to all the champions out there living at your finest champions. Well, welcome to Health is Wealth Wednesday. I am glad that you're live with me. And if you're watching as a replay, that's all good. I'm glad that you're here anyway. Yes, we're back again. We are going to be talking about stress. Stress, I know I'm smiling, right? And I'm talking about stress. I'm smiling because I know what stress has done for me, what it has done to me, and I'm trying my best to share the message so that we're empowered, we are educated and empowered to avoid stress, to prevent it from keeping us back. Now, this is a 5-part series on steps to avoid inflammation in our bodies. We talked about sleep a few weeks back, and I'm hoping that we are all engaging in 7 to 9 hours of rest. I know I'm trying my best, and when I do, my body thanks me for it. So, yes, we're going to talk about stress today, just right after talking about sleep. But before we do that, let me give you an insight to why we'll be talking about stress. So it's so important, right? Stress just really comes about just a cascade of events that takes place in our body. It creates a huge impact in our ability to live at our finest health because of all the hormonal cascades. And so today I'll be breaking the different types of stress, what we can do to avoid stress, what are those signs, what are those symptoms. But before I do so, I'm sure you're wondering who I am. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Dr. Delapo Babalola, aka Dr. Babs. I am a family physician and I am the founder of Living at Your Finest. I am a health and fitness coach. So I'm really pleased to be here today, and I thank you all for joining in. Please, if I may ask, can we keep this engaged? I want us to communicate with each other. We're here together to encourage each other, to help each other. So I would like for you to please, just leave some comments. Let's know where you're, watching from and what you've benefited from this. And of course, share and tag with other friends and family so we can all triumph together as women champions. So let's dive into stress. What is stress? That's the question of the hour, right? So stress is how our body responds to any demand or threat. That's stress, put in a nutshell. And then what are the different types of stress? We have acute and chronic stress. So when I refer to acute, that means less than a month we have where body is subjected to that threat, and it's less than a month. We have chronic on the other hand. Chronic is when more than a month you are subjected to that threat, to that stressor, and your body is reacting to it over a long period of time. As you can imagine, that is not helpful. When we say acute, it's something that, like, for instance, if you see a lion and you're like, okay, this is not good, and you pick race, you go, that is acute. But chronic is like if you're worrying about something and you're worrying over and over again. So that is chronic. Now, what are some of those stresses? There's several stresses in our lives, just pure being human beings. We're triggered by so many different stresses. I would mention a few. It could be emotional. So, are you troubled by something? Maybe you had a loss in the family. Yeah, all of those are valid stresses. It could be physical stress. Maybe you're in pain. That could cause stress. There's chemical stress, and maybe you're, whether it's atmosphere, maybe it's occupational, medication, that could also cause some chemical stress. Work stress, there is family stress. I mean, we love our family, right? You can't do without them, and you need them all the time, but they can cause you stress sometimes. There's decision stress. So for instance, for me, I just take the stress off by making sure that I have my meal schedule. My kids don't like it, but it just takes that stress of thinking, oh, what am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to have for dinner? So we have a food timetable at home. There's stress in good times. So like you're planning a wedding, you're having a graduation, you're having a party. We're under a lot of stress, but all those should really be acute. So just a short, amount of stress. There is isolation stress as well. And this is with COVID, we're all told to social distance, so that could be stressful. Now, there are several symptoms of stress, right? So what are some of those symptoms of stress? I can tell you that I've experienced some of them. Some of the symptoms is just having your heart rate beating so fast. stressed. You can have your blood pressure high. I recall some years back, my blood pressure was so high, it was unbelievable. I just had my second child and I had the worst headache ever. And that was how my stress was manifesting. I was, oh goodness, I had a toddler, I had a newborn, trying to make everything perfect. I was stressing over everything. Never had blood pressure problems during my pregnancy, only to find out that my blood pressure after 4 days of taking Tylenol and it didn't get better, that my blood pressure was 220 over 120. It was terrible. It was terrifying. I went to the emergency room and I was checked out, CT scan, the whole works. And the doctor sat next to me and said, we can't find the reason for why you're stressed. He said, you need to de-stress. Whatever it is, de-stress. And I had to learn to calm down. I needed to learn how to de-stress. And of course, I was on blood pressure medicine because I didn't want to have a stroke or die of a stroke or heart attack. I was on medicine and it took about 3 months to get off the medicine because I had to learn how to de-stress. So it affects the heart. It can affect the GI. You're just cramping. You're wondering, why are you cramping? Why am I feeling so unease? It can cause a lot of, like I said, the headaches can happen. Your immune system can be compromised because with stress, high stress, I'm going to be talking about the cortisol level being high. So there are tons of things that can happen that can occur to the body, just from all the way head to toe. You can have skin problems. I remember during the same time too, my hair was falling out. So stress is really a terrible state of mind that we need to get ourselves out of as quick as possible so that we're not subjected to the same amount of impact and hormonal cascade that takes place. Now that we've talked about some of those things, let's talk about why it happens, right? So why does it happen? Again, what I wanted to speak about here is what happens. So I talked about the effects, right? What you see in your body, your heart rate, your immune system, feeling sick, feeling tired, having a lot of GI problems, cramp in the legs. It's just a cascade of things that happen. And why does this happen? Stress response. So you have the stress reaction and you have the stress response. The stress reaction is that internal effect, and that is the cortisol and the adrenaline that takes place. So your body's under stress. You have, in good response, you do have to have cortisol level, but when it's in excess amount and adrenaline in excess amount, then that's when it's troubling because it causes you to have this overstimulation of your sympathetic nerve, and that causes all those symptoms that we see. Of course, you have the response, which are all the other symptoms that come along with it. So not only do you have this, you think that that's where it ends, right? You have your hunger cues are completely off. Not only does your body hold on to fat, your metabolism shifts. So a lot of times you're like, why can't I lose weight? I'm eating right. I'm not eating much. Why am I gaining so much weight? That's because of the high levels of cortisol levels in the bloodstream. That is just making it really difficult to lose weight. Your body's holding on to fat and you're not able to burn. And unfortunately, it's a cascade, right? So you're stressed, you're not sleeping well. And then so your growth hormones, which I spoke about 2 weeks ago, if you want to go back and listen to it, your growth hormone is not activated because you have high levels of cortisol level. So it's a cascade of things that just really happen with us whenever we're stressed. So the goal here is to do our best to avoid it at all means and at all cost. Now let's talk about how we can avoid it, right? We know why we should avoid stress, but how do we avoid stress, especially in a stressful environment? We're faced with stress all the time. So these are the most common ways to avoid stress or minimize our response to those external forces and the internal cascade that takes place within us. Real food. If we eat healthier, definitely our body is more able to adapt to stressful impacts around us. We eat whole foods, fruits, veggies. Our body's immune system is capable to fight against any form of stresses. We want to avoid processed foods, fried foods. All of those, unfortunately, just makes it a cascade. Because if your heart is already beating fast because you're under so much stress, imagine eating all the unhealthy things. It would just make it worse. All right, so we say from frying pan to fire. So we want to make sure we're eating proper food, staying hydrated. It's not just food, what we drink as well. Exercise. Now, I'm going to be talking about exercise later down the line, but exercise, there is a myth about exercise just helping us lose weight solely, and that's why we do it. No, that's not correct. Exercise helps us build good hormones. It cuts back on our cortisol level. When we exercise, we have a lot of endorphins, which counteracts that cortisol level that is not good for us over a long period of time. It makes us feel strong. It makes us feel encouraged. So exercise is good, even if it's just as simple as a walk, or if it's just dancing. I listen to music. I enjoy listening to music. So I dance with my music, especially when I'm having a rough day. My kids know me. I'm like, okay, where's my music? I need to play my music and get my mind right. So that definitely always helps. I mean, twinkle of an eye, I do feel better. Sleep. I cannot overemphasize sleep. Sleep is so important that we need to engage in sleep. We need to make sure that we slow down in sleep, because that's how our body can rejuvenate. We can cut back on that cortisol level. Hunger cues can rebalance, so that we're not feeling overly hungry and craving all the things that we shouldn't eat. Because again, remember, I don't know if you've been listening to my podcast, I speak about how it's not willpower, it's more skill power. So we can do this together. It is possible. We need to see it as achievable and attainable. Now, support. This is a huge one. We need a support system. Support is key. No man is an island. We need to support each other, whether it's through your church, your family members. Your Facebook is a good one. You lots of people to communicate with. Of course, you do need to be mindful of the kind of energy that you have around you. You want it to be positive energy. You want to make sure you stay away from negative people, because negatives you will just, it's contagious, just as good people, good energy is contagious. So we want to be mindful of that support system that we have to create, that will get us to the place of less stress in our lives. Other things that we can talk about is prioritize. If you feel that there's a lot of things that is going on, do them in little beats. And that helps me. It's helped me over the years, that if I see everything as a mountain, then I cannot see past the mountain. If I chunk things into little beats, okay, so what's the problem here? Break it down, then it seems more attainable and achievable. So those are some, a very few of the tips that I would like to mention today. So my question to you is, what are you going to do? What's the call of action? How are you going to stop stressing? We want to live at our finest health, so we need to work on cutting back on our stress now. I'm not undermining the fact that there's stressors around us, but it's the way we perceive the stress that helps us to move to the next level. I To the glory of God, I mean, I was able to overcome the blood pressure issues. Now, every day I'm mindful, because I have a family history of high blood pressure, that if I overstress, then I'm going to go back to square one. So I do make it a conscious effort to find out how I can de-stress. And that has helped me over the years. Of course, it's a work in progress. So what are you going to do? Please type it in the comments. I want to hear from you. What have you done before that has worked? What have you done? What have you engaged in that has helped you to be less stressed? We want to learn from each other. We want to triumph together as women that lives at our finest health. As you all know, knowledge is power, right? But consistent practice is what makes perfect. So I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all for staying tuned, staying on, and I hope I'll see you next time, where we talk about other factors that reduces the other factors that reduces inflammation in our bodies altogether. All right, thank you. Take care.